Without further wasting much time, we will introduce the first segment, which is the Al-Bayan segment. And today's topic is very, very interesting. It is titled Islam and the Girl Child Education. Most of our non-Muslim brothers and sisters do really have this misconception that Islam does not have any rights, for women and all that. But today we are going to be treating one of the rights of the women, which is the right of education. And we have none other to take this very beautiful topic, our beautiful Sheikh, a well-respected Ustaz. He is none other than Barrister Nurudeen Asunogie. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ramadan Mubarak, sir.
Ramadan Kareem.
Alhamdulillah. Sheikh, it is usually, a talk of the topic, outside the Islamic circle, that the Muslim, the girl child, most especially that of Islam, the girl child in Islam, has no right at all, But they have not realized that Allah has given the female a lot of rights. But today we'll be talking about one of these rights, which is the right of education. I want you to throw more light on that for like 10 to 15 minutes, inshallah.
Well, thank you for having me and for choosing this all-important topic. I want to begin by saying that Islam is a religion, a way of life that is predicated on knowledge. In one of the strong traditions of the Prophet ﷺ, which is Hadith Qudusi, he is reported to have said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Know me before you worship me." How are you going to worship me if you do not know me? What drives that, of course, is knowledge. It is important again to know that the first encounter that the Prophet ﷺ had with divinity was along the line of knowledge. The very first few verses of the Quran that were revealed were on the issue of knowledge. The archangel appeared before him in the cave where he had gone on a retreat, wanting to sequester himself from a very iniquitous society. And there he was asked to read in the name of his Lord who creates. Do not again forget that in another passage of the Quran, he was regarded as the unlettered prophet. And so you find that knowledge is key. Even in Allah's colloquy with the angels in the 2nd chapter of the Quran, Allah had asked that the angels should prostrate in veneration to Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, the first in creation. And the angels were, of course, into a kind of argument. They became polemical, wanting to know from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why did they need to do that? Iblis championed this, saying that he was of a much more superior provenance. The source of his creation was far much superior because Adam was created from the mud. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Adam had what you didn't have. And so Adam had been taken into Allah's cerebral tutelage. Adam was required to give the names of things, which of course was demonstrative of knowledge. And when Adam gave the names of these things after the angels had failed to do so, they were asked to prostrate in veneration to knowledge, in submission, in deference to the superiority of knowledge over ignorance. And so when you take all of this, knowledge is key, knowledge is fundamental. And you can't practice the religion of Islam without knowledge. In copious passages of the Quran, you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, are they equal, those who know and those who do not know? Because of the centrality of knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the passage of the Quran too says that to whom he has given knowledge, he has given abundance of good, because there can be nothing that is much better than knowledge. So you find them plentifully in the Quran. Now, knowledge in Islam is not a thing that you do or get as a right. It's a responsibility. I hope you appreciate the difference between what is a right, is like an entitlement, so you could get it. It's a responsibility, which means that you are obligated to getting it. And that again explains why the Prophet ﷺ, in a strong tradition of his, said, knowledge is compulsory for the male Muslim and the female Muslim. And elsewhere he said, it doesn't matter the crucibles you have to go through in order that you gain knowledge, even if it meant you traveling from Saudi Arabia, where he was making this statement, to China, which was the farthest distance, because China was a metaphor, which would mean that no obstacle was strong enough to serve as a justificatory basis for why you would not forage for knowledge. Now, as to the girl child, the prophet in a tradition says that once a society is healthy, once a society is immaculate, once a society is buffered against putridity, just look at the female folk of that society. In other words, you attribute that beauty of society, the healthy nature of society, to the healthy nature of the females in that society. Conversely, when society is sick, when there is confusion, when there is anarchy, there is misery, is a consequence of what the female represents. And the quality of the female, the importance, the significance of the female is not within the context of the physical look. It is a texture of our humanity, which is defined, shaped and reshaped by the quality of knowledge that the female has. It again explains why a poet had described the female as the first school for every child. From the womb to when the baby is ultimately delivered and when the baby would gain independence to be on its own, the mother represents the first school. And once that school is solid, that child is, of course, good to go. So if the health of a society, if the well-being and goodness of a child is predicated on the quality of the mother, then it goes without saying that education for the woman is compulsory, is a responsibility that when you fail to discharge, you will be required to render an account when you ultimately meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Islam, it is a much better thing, the Prophet ﷺ had said, to educate a woman. If you had to make the choice between educating, assuming they were limited, you had a diet of resources, and you had to make a choice between educating a female and a male child, the education should go to the female child, because once that happens, it's the entire society that becomes a monumental beneficiary of the education of that particular female, as opposed to if it were just a male who alone appropriates the benefit of that education. The education of a woman, of course, enables her to become an excellent administrator of the home, an excellent manager of resources, an excellent nurse, an excellent everything that is of value, that is of core value to any society that is gravitating towards sanity and health. So educating the female, whatever, is key. So central it is that whoever preaches something to the contrary is introducing what is alien. The education of the female was so central in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ that the Prophet had a special day that was exclusively dedicated to the female, for the instruction of the females. No other person comes around. That was not to say that if he was engaging the male folk, that the female could not come to benefit. But there was a day that was exclusively for the female. The male were not even admitted into that circle. And it was the totality of knowledge. Knowledge in Islam is not bifurcated. Knowledge in Islam is total, because the knowledge that the angels were required to talk about, and all of those objects that Adam ﷺ gave their names, represented the totality of knowledge that was available, or that was a desideratum, so to speak, for the survival of humanity. So there is absolutely no knowledge that the female folk are excluded from. So knowledgeable, stupendously knowledgeable were the females, that the Prophet sometimes would say, hey, if you wanted to understand the law of jurisprudence, learn it from this little female. And so when you find anyone who says that in Islam, women are denied the right of education, that person either speaks from the position of ignorance or is outrightly being mischievous. Otherwise, knowledge is key. I'll tell you this, because it was what was the patrimony that Muslims inherited from time to time. The oldest university in the world that was built in Fez was built by a female, Fatima Ari, in sometimes 859 HA. Now, that particular university was a university that was given to the study of Islamic jurisprudence, medicine, science, just name it. Ibn Rushdi, the Jews philosophers and others were all students of that great institution, established by a woman who was herself a walking encyclopedia. So, if you find any individual telling you that Muslim girls are not supposed, that is an anathema when you find a Muslim girl getting education, we say no. Education is compulsory for both the male and the female, and even if you needed to do segregation, it is to be done in favor of the female child. It is therefore not correct when you find anybody saying or arguing that, oh, they don't go to school, once you are a female child, you are disadvantaged. Whoever does that operates from the angle of ignorance. Yes, some persons would have argued that when the Taliban, for example, took over in Afghanistan, females were debarred from seeking education. What those persons did, they did out of ignorance. What they did is not representative of what the position of Islam is. If today there is a law in the country that says don't smoke in their home, and so you find me smoking in their home, I'm just a breaker of the law. It does not mean that that is a representation of the position of the country and stuff like that. So it is not correct. We have Muslim females who have excelled in medicine, in core sciences, in Islamic jurisprudence. Just name every aspect of human endeavor. They have been there. Because the challenge, the spiritual challenge, the religious obligation that is to be executed by a male is not any the less different from what a female. Where, for example, fasting. All the rules we need to observe in fasting as males, our female counterparts are observing the same rules. So the bar is not lowered for them. If knowledge is required for you to know how you deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you need that knowledge. In Surah to Yasin, for example, there is a verse in Surah to Yasin where Allah talks about the sun and the moon traveling in different orbits, and that all of these do not clash. So you require some degree of knowledge of science for you to be able to do. How does a female Muslim, for example, appreciate that verse of the Quran if it does not go into the sciences? If you took this, whatever, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the alteration of the days and nights, there are signs for those who have capacity for, it's a capacity for reflection. In whatever position they are, what are they going to reflect over? Reflect over what is in knowledge, what is in nature. And reflecting over what is in nature is education. Because what education ultimately does is to manumit you from the shackles of ignorance, is to nourish your soul, is to give you enlightenment, because education enables you to penetrate, which Islam challenges you to do, to penetrate in the things that you find in nature, because it takes an appreciation of all of those things to deepen your appreciation of the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if your knowledge of it is shallow, then you have issues. When you take, for example, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah to Muluk, oh, that the birds flap their wings, and at a particular stage they leave them spread out, they no longer. You will have to appreciate why the force of gravity would not operate in a way that brings down that whatever that has spread its whatever, no longer flapping the wings. So you need to understand the laws of thermodynamics that enables a plane with all of the hundreds of thousands of steel, whatever weight, to be able to lift itself. You need to understand Archimedes' principle of displacement for a ship with hundreds of thousands of weight not to sink, because all of these are only a possibility. And when you have this understanding, your appreciation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the creator, which of course is the whole essence of our being, will be much, much deeper. And so you find that in the Quran, for example, is the totality of knowledge that is to be found there. Allah talks about the creation of man in the different stages. Modern science today has come to collaborate what it says. So Islam is not anti-knowledge. The Muslim woman, like I have said before, once she has knowledge, life becomes much more meaningful for the husband. Life becomes much more meaningful for the children who will come into that relationship, because they will be properly schooled as to why they should do what they do and why they should sequester themselves from the things that Islam says they should not get involved in. So knowledge is key.
No. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khairan for that very beautiful clarification. I think I'm going to ask one or two questions from the aspect of the non-Muslims, because we have a lot of questions coming in from them, and maybe we'll be able to take one or two. But before we take this question, we'll go for a short break. When we come back, the program continues. Yes, we welcome you back to the program. It's Al-Haqq Networks. Inshallah, you just listened to our stars on the topic Islam and girl child education. If you are just joining in, it's Al-Haqq Networks. We are live from independent television, inshallah. Before we went on the break, there was a question I wanted to ask our Sheikh regarding the misconceptional questions that we normally get every now and then, which is, if the girl child in Islam is allowed to education, after having this enormous education, she can go to university and all of those institutions, can she hold a position? Is it allowed for her to hold a public position?
Well, if she has the requisite qualification, yes, she could hold position. She could hold position, except that she just will have to observe public ethics. She holds position.
Okay.
I mean, you mean if a lady goes to study medicine, for example, and becomes eminently qualified,
will she sit at home?
She becomes she is qualified to become the CMD of a teaching hospital or a university, and you say, oh, because she's a female, she should not. Islam didn't say so.
Exactly.
She can't hold position.
Viewers at home, the line is open. You can call the numbers on your screen for you to ask any of the related questions that we've been trying to put answers to. The call lines is currently showing, and inshallah, we will be taking it once we have our call. Sheikh, one or two questions as well we would also want to put across. Like you have rightly said, when you were giving the topic, the talk a while ago, something struck me. If a woman is the nucleus of knowledge, and when it comes to the issue of, if there's a tight angle and you have to spend for knowledge, the female has to take it. And as well, she is, if she's a mother, she is the nucleus of knowledge in the house, because she gets to take the child. Oh, we have a call. Let's take this call. Hello. Hello? Hello, good afternoon. Good evening. Okay, I think that that caller is not, we can't hear that. So as I was saying, the woman is, so to speak, is the nucleus of knowledge, because when she gives birth to children, she's going to practically teach those children. The male normally comes to work by morning and leaves, and come back home by evening. So he, by a natural disposition, he doesn't have the time, so to speak, but it's also a responsibility to him. And so thereby my question is, what are the steps that a woman needs to take when it comes to teaching the child? What are the procedures?
Well, the procedures are that first, she must be a good example, teach more by action than by words. Be selective of the words that come out of your mouth. You don't have to stand up.
It's like 1 minute. It's like we have a caller. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening.
Yeah, my name is.
Okay. Okay.
There is a question that I want to put before the man on the TV. Okay. Yes. I understand that the Islamic man marry more than one wife. Why is that chance given to the Muslim if women are recognized by the Islamic?
Can you please lower the volume of your TV set? I think we are having interference from your end. We can't really hear you clearly.
So, okay. I said the Muslim, I understand they marry more than one wife. And yes, a benefit given to women, as that Islamic man explained. Regard that if you have to choose in the terms of education, it's good to educate a woman than a man. Why is it that that chance is not given to a man? And it's like they underrate a woman that they marry more than one wife, and the woman cannot marry more than two husbands. They cannot marry two husbands. That was the question I put before the Islamic man.
Okay, what your question now is, let me get you clearly. Why is the woman not marrying more than two men? As part of the rights to her. Okay, yeah, Sheikh. I think you. Thank you so much.
It would not be a right for her to marry more than one, more than one man, because that would naturally bring about confusion, which they would not be able. And again, you can't tell who the parent, who will be the father of any child when she becomes pregnant.
Absolutely.
And so what nature has done is to do what is realistic and what is reasonable.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah khairan. Alhamdulillah. That would be, okay, I think we can still take one more call. Okay, I think we lost that. Viewers at home, that will be the much we'll be taking, we'll be able to take on this segment. We'll go for a short break now, and when we come back, the program continues.